Looking at books about kind of aviation, military aviation specifically, bombing, those sorts of things, and also gardening, agriculture, those types of things that kind of tie all of this together. And that's a really interesting era because the era of kind of small-scale agriculture is kind of going out about that time. You're right at the dawn of kind of, mass mechanized agriculture. So the types of books that were being written about agriculture tended to be very, I can't think of another word, but gentlemanly. It's the kind of thing that you're expecting a person is doing on a small plot of land, doing it at a very small margin of profit, kind of going to market and selling these vegetables that they grow. And interesting at the same time, aviation is so new at the time of World War I. I mean, it's only about 10 years old. So the books being written about it are very, they really don't know what to say exactly because most of the situations they're talking about haven't actually happened yet. So it's like, how does an airplane engage a Zeppelin in battle? Well, we don't know. It's not really happened yet in that way, but here's some guesses. So there's really interesting overlap in terms of the way that both of these types of literature were written. So I thought the easiest way would just take two in particular, one being Edgar Charles Middleton's The Way of the Air, A Description of Modern Aviation, and on the other hand being Liberty Hyde Bailey's, and what a great name that is, Liberty Hyde Bailey, The Principles of Vegetable Gardening. And really all I did is kind of take the two of them and smash them up real good together. And it's kind of funny, the language is so similar, it's really hard to tell kind of where one begins and one ends. I didn't really change a lot of the structures of the sentences, and they kind of go together in a really sort of strange way, which I will read to you now. And I should say, if you're looking at your chapbooks, you'll notice that there's no title. I failed to submit a title to Allison, to which I apologize. But Brian Beatty, who was reading later, suggested we call it The Way of the Vegetable, A Description of Aviation Gardening. Actually does pretty good. So here we go. With every garden market in early spring, some new theory is set up, some new conclusion arrived at, and as of yet, nothing can be definite. We may say for practical purposes that lifting power, climate, and soil are the leading factors in determining the location of a market garden. At present time, strategy is confined to long-distance aeroplane raids into an enemy's gardening soil. The battle formation of the aeroplane squadron is now and will in the future be similar to that of a deep and uniform sandy soil. It warms up early in the spring, it comes quickly into workable conditions after a rain, and it responds quickly against artillery fire. Even now, the two methods are closely akin. There are three distinct phases of gardening soil to be considered: aeroplane versus aeroplane, airship versus airship, and aeroplane against airship. It is a difficult matter to decide which of these three is the more useful for some fruits, particularly pears and plums, and which is the more useful for other general farm crops. But thus far, one is inclined to say that light, high-powered, friable clay loam may be excellent for this purpose. Zeppelins and airships are for the most part clumsy and unwieldy. They're cold and late. They cannot be worked when either wet or dry, and the period in which they can be handled is so short that much labor and equipment are required to enable one to handle them quickly and efficiently. Seaplanes, again, are usually heavy and slow to answer to the controls. A suitable condition may be obtained by judicious tillage, the incorporation of humus, and by some underdraining. But unless this is the case, seaplanes remain suitable only for crops such as cabbages, peas, and beans. Among the most important factors in gardening are weather conditions. First in order of importance is wind, providing the surrounding area is not too frosty. Wind is usually good for vegetables if the surrounding air is well decomposed and communited. Regarding wind power, take the following example. A cabbage and a potato are approaching one another to give battle. Both have a speed of 60 miles per hour, but the cabbage is flying down with a 15-mile wind at the back of him while the potato is accumulating in beds of shallow ponds and lakes. Their relative speeds would be the cabbage 75 miles per hour, with the potato at merely 45 for an advantage of 30 miles per hour for the cabbage. On the turn, while circling, the cabbage will require but a short time to mature, while the potato will merely prefer a cool location to be prepared in time for his harvest. This sort of good pilotage is of extreme importance. The pilot who is able to get the most out of peat, moss bogs, and even drained swamps will almost invariably gain the day against his foe. For example, clouds are often made great use of by pilots. Almost every day we read of a slow-growing and intermittent-growing vegetables dashing out from behind a bank of clouds and taking a patch of clay loam by surprise. A turnip may make use of various expedients to gain an advantage, such as in getting between a potato and the sun, diving suddenly and then looping in, and if rainfall is sufficient, taking him in the most vulnerable position, and the season is over. Nearly all raiding zeppelins are grown directly from seeds. Therefore, the character of the seeds is of vital importance to French, Belgian, German, and British vegetable grower alike. The larger parts of seed tests and germination studies of the far-flung battle lines of Flanders were intended to be peaceful. Instead, the loss of a crop and of a season's labor has been the result of these encounters, with piercing searchlight rays, bursting shrapnel, and a germination rate far below 40%. In order to determine how good these seeds may be, they first must satisfy 4 general tests or demands. 1, they must be viable or able to grow in many types of soil. 2, they must be elongated shapes, darting hither and thither over a darkened London. 3, they must possess longevity. And 4, they must be deadly enough to wreck the half of a city. In fact, seed tests have been converted into an instrument of war, with machine guns mounted fore and aft, and with a deadly cargo on board, commonly vegetables or some cereals. Combat on vegetable gardening land has yet to materialize. Many opinions and theories, often widely conflicting, have been put forward concerning the possibilities and probabilities of such conflicts. However, nothing definite can be advanced until a battle between potatoes and airships has definitively taken place. Considering first their main qualities, the airship has great lifting powers, is more heavily armed, and can grow quickly and continuously in many types of soil, whereas the potato has great speed, is easily maneuvered, and contains much more plant food material. The tendency of Zeppelin gardeners is to prepare an application of concentrated or commercial fertilizer with every raid, which renders attack by potato more difficult. But, on the other hand, potatoes are being cultivated which can develop so remarkable in earliness and quickness that the Zeppelin will fail to reach the market or the table at the desired time. When this occurs, the Zeppelin menace will end forever.